Look, he's a showboat. He's a grandstander. The FBI has been in turmoil. You know that. I know that. Everybody knows that. You take a look at the FBI a year ago. It was in virtual turmoil less than a year ago. It hasn't recovered from that.
Monday you met with the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein.
Right.
Did you ask for a recommendation?
What I did is I was going to fire Comey. My decision. It was not...
You had made the decision before they came in the room.
I was going to fire Comey. There's no good time to do it, by the way.
Because in your letter you said I accepted their recommendation.
Yeah, well,
so you had already made the decision.
I was going to fire regardless of recommendation.
So there was really...
He made a recommendation. He's highly respected. Very good guy. Very smart guy. The Democrats like him. The Republicans like him. He made a recommendation. But regardless of recommendation, I was going to fire Comey.
Let me ask you about your termination letter to Mr. Comey. You write, I greatly appreciate you informing me on 3 separate occasions that I am not under investigation. Why did you put that in there?
Because he told me that. I mean, he told me
He told you weren't under investigation with regard to the Russia investigation?
I've heard that from others. I think.
Was it in a phone call? Did you meet face to face?
I had a dinner with him. He wanted to have dinner because he wanted to stay on. We had a very nice dinner at the White House very early on. A dinner was arranged. I think he asked for the dinner. And he wanted to stay on as the FBI head. And I said, I'll consider. We'll see what happens. But we had a very nice dinner. And at that time, he told me, you are not under investigation, which I knew anyway.
That was one meeting. What was it?
First of all, when you're under investigation, you're giving all sorts of documents and everything. I knew I wasn't under. And I heard it was stated at the committee, at some committee level, that I wasn't. Number one.
So that didn't come directly from
Then during
him.
a phone call, he said it, and then during another phone call, he said it. So he said it once at dinner, and then he said it twice during phone calls.
Did you call him?
In one case, I called him. In one case, he called me.
And did you ask, am I under investigation?
I actually asked him, yes. I said, if it's possible, would you let me know, am I under investigation? He said, you are not under investigation.
But he's given sworn testimony that there is an ongoing investigation into the Trump campaign and possible collusion with the Russian government. You were the centerpiece of the Trump campaign.
Well,
so
all
was
I
he
can
being
tell you is,
truthful when he says
I
you
know
were under investigation?
I know that I'm not under investigation. Me, personally. I'm not talking about campaigns. I'm not talking about anything else. I'm not under investigation.
All right, so there you heard it, President Trump saying he would have fired James Comey irrespective of any recommendations from others inside the Trump administration. Lots to discuss with our panel. Our chief political analyst, Gloria Borger, is with us. Our chief national security correspondent, Jim Sciutto, Kimberly Dozier. She's the CNN Global Affairs analyst, senior national security correspondent for the Daily Beast, and Tom Fuentes, senior law enforcement analyst, former FBI assistant director. All right, Gloria, let me start with you. The president saying it was his decision. He made the decision. He didn't care what others recommended. He was going to fire Comey.
Well, that's fine, except his White House has been saying something very different. His White House has been saying that he took the recommendation of Rod Rosenstein, and when he processed this, he then decided that he had no choice but to fire James Comey. Here, the president is saying actually what many people have suspected, which is that he didn't like him. He watched him on TV. There's another quote from NBC where he calls Comey a scapegoat, right? And that he didn't like him. He didn't like what he said at that hearing. His anger had been boiling inside. I was told by one source who talks to the president regularly that hearing drove him kind of over the edge. And then he decided to get rid of the guy. So what they had was a firing in search of a rationale beyond the fact that the president didn't like him and the president was mad about how much attention the Russia investigation was getting. And that's what actually the president told us today.
Yeah, elsewhere in the interview, he says that Comey is a showboat, a grandstander, right, and he wanted him out, Jim Sciutto, because the FBI, in the president's words, was in turmoil.
That's contradicted by many people inside the Bureau that myself and my colleagues have spoken with. Many have enormous confidence in him and were upset and shocked by his dismissal. So there's another story told by people inside that building. I think it's also important to just catalog and list the number of either misleading or contradictory statements and accounts that have come out of the White House regarding this. One, that the Deputy AG memo is what led to Comey's firing. That now contradicted by the president himself, despite the fact that the White House aggressively and unequivocally made that the justification on Tuesday. We were here, we were discussing it. Two, the idea that Comey told the president 3 times that he's not under investigation. Misleading because, one, we're told by people inside the FBI that's information that Comey would never give to the president in an active investigation. Two, though, and this is an important distinction, the president himself is not a subject of the investigation today. His advisors are. Campaign. And if the FBI or the Senate or House Intelligence Committees find evidence that lead from the advisors of the president, then he will be under investigation. That's an important distinction. Two, the White House has said that the investigation is ending, shrinking, etc. We heard that from Sarah Huckabee Sanders yesterday. Fact is, we know it's the opposite. It's expanding. They've asked for more resources. They've issued grand jury subpoenas, etc. They're asking now for financial records. And finally, the White House has said repeatedly, no evidence of collusion. There's no there. In fact, Senator Burr and Senator Warner, who are leading the Senate Intelligence Committee investigation, I reached out to both of them yesterday. Both of them said that is still an open question.
And today, the Deputy Attorney General called it a highly significant investigation. That's not a small thing. And what was interesting to me is the president continuing to ask the FBI director whether he's under investigation. 3 times. It's, you know,
the president, Kimberly, you heard him just say in this new NBC News interview that he totally stands by what he wrote in this letter firing Comey. And he wrote, while I greatly appreciate you informing me on 3 separate occasions that I am not under investigation, I nevertheless concur with the judgment of the Department of Justice that you are not able to effectively lead the Bureau. And in this new interview, the president said, gave some more specifics how that conversation was, saying he specifically had asked the FBI director, am I under investigation?
Which would be interfering with an investigation, which he's not supposed to do. It all goes back to the legitimacy of his election. He sees this entire investigation into possible collusion with Russia and into his national security advisor, Mike Flynn, as saying that he doesn't belong in the White House. So he continues to fight it every step of the way, even in defiance of evidence to the contrary. And he read Comey as being disloyal to him for standing up for the independence of the FBI. We even reported yesterday that he has had to be told repeatedly by White House lawyers not to reach out to Mike Flynn, who he feels bad about how he's being treated in the media. It's as if he still doesn't understand the gravity of this situation.
You know, Tom Fuentes, you used to work, you spent a career at the FBI, worked your way up to become an assistant FBI director. When you hear the president say that the now fired FBI director was a showboat, a grandstander, and he left the FBI in turmoil, your reaction?
Well, first of all, that's insulting, obviously. He didn't, and the way the firing was conducted was extremely insulting. And most of the people I've talked to at the FBI, actually all of them, have said it was disgusting how the firing was conducted. However, some of what he says, you know, these are like political polls. You take a poll in June and you take one in September and the numbers might not match, and both could be true. Last year in July, when Director Comey had his press conference, and FBI agents, former agents like me and others that I was with, heard Comey's testimony, and as he was listing off the things that Hillary Clinton had done in the entire server matter, all of us were of the impression, wow, he's going to recommend charges. And we're shocked when he didn't. And then the turmoil comes later, not just that she wasn't prosecuted when they thought she and Uma Abedin and Cheryl Mills were completely exposed in that matter, you know, but the fact that when they heard about Hillary Clinton's interview at the FBI, and a lot of people, including me, questioned, wait a minute, we wouldn't have done that with a gangster like John Gotti or El Chapo or somebody else. You're the main subject of a case. By the way, drop by for an interview, you know, bring whoever you want, and all of that. That would have never happened. That main subject would have testified before a grand jury under oath, every word recorded so that it could be used later if testifying under oath again and they contradict. So the manner in which the investigation was conducted, a lot of FBI personnel thought, wait a minute, if you hold the Bureau with all of the tools available for sensitive investigations that we use every day in organized crime, that we use every day in terrorism investigations, and suddenly you're conducting this extremely important case with what appeared to be one hand tied behind your back, there was consternation. It wasn't directed directly at Comey, but it was in general, how could this happen?
All right, I want to go